First thing I want to go over is just our agenda. Because we have a small group, we do have a guest, Lynn Gottman, so I do want us to do introductions so she knows who she's talking to as she's presenting on her project a little later in the agenda. I will also go through a request for you guys on a February date meeting change, an update on our program manager position, and then also some program updates and a legislative update for you. Please stop me if you have any questions, but I don't foresee us staying for the full 2 hours today, just because I think we have a little bit less to cover, but still good stuff. So I'll stop sharing the agenda for now and just keep us on track. So the first thing I'd like to do, because we do have a guest, is I'll just call on you and you can please introduce yourself. We'll start with the commissioners. Carrie, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Carrie Schifflin and I'm a commissioner.
David.
Morning, David Dragoo, Commissioner.
Virginia.
Virginia Davis, staff.
Alethea.
Hi there, Alethea Gomez, Director of Programs and Initiatives at EPIC, Executives Partnering to Invest in Children.
Jeff.
Hey, good morning, Jeff Kraft, OEDIT Deputy Director, Director of Business Funding and Incentives. And my initial interest in the work that Natrice was doing, other than the fact that it was great work, is I support the EDC and work closely with the Economic Development Commission. So Carrie and David and the other partners who attend this, so just generally interested, but then secondarily working on some housing related programming within OEDIT. So hope to collaborate with Natrice and use this as a joint tool with some of the other programming OEDIT is going to start to work on from a housing perspective as well. So great to see everybody.
Thanks, Jeff. And Lynn, please.
I'm Lynn Gottman, and I am one of the persons that will be asking to partner with you. I live in Stratton, Colorado, and I work with a nonprofit, and we're trying to develop a child care center and a fitness center.
Thanks, Lynn. And it looks like, Frank, we just had you join. If you could just introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, my name is Frank Cannon. I'm a partner with Continuum Partners, real estate development company.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. I think that covers everybody on the call. If people join later, I'll go ahead and make sure we know who they are. So my first request is more of a oops on my schedule request that I have. So our next meeting is scheduled for Valentine's Day, February 14th at 10 to noon. I was wondering if between Carrie and David, we can change that to either the 13th at the same time or the 15th at the same time, please.
So from my perspective, I could do the 13th. I could not do the 15th.
That is the same for me. I know you're a romantic, Natrice, but probably better to have it on the 13th. I agree. I thought that, I'm not sure about Stephen though and the others, but it's going to be 2 hours. Is that right?
Maybe. Well, we might have UNC come back with answers to the questions we asked. So it might take the full 2 hours, but it might not also.
Yeah, that also works. If Monday the 13th works, great. FYI, the next week, President's Day is on the 20th. So that is a holiday. So
yeah. I'll send an email out to Simon and Steve and make sure that works. It has nothing to actually do with Valentine's Day as to why I need to skip. I have another overlapping meeting that I wasn't paying attention to on my calendar. So I'll go ahead and propose the 13th and we'll change it on your calendars with the invite. So I'll work with Virginia to get that changed and then the website will change as well. Perfect. Thank you. Real quick update on the program management position. Thank you, Virginia. You're the best. I did get 16 qualified applicants, which is actually more applicants than we got the first time. So that's always interesting. Changed the verbiage a little bit in the job description, added some real estate, and then also put a preferred qualification that they have a real estate license. And so we did get 16 qualified applicants for that position. The team is currently reviewing those applications to get us to the top 6. And then from those top 6 is when we will do the interviews. So if you're still interested in being part of the interviews, what I'll do is send out some holds on your calendar. Just make sure that if you're not able to attend a certain one, let me know so I can change it to a different date. Because since it is a classified position for the state, we have to have a consistent experience for all candidates. So really excited about the fact that we actually got more applicants than we did the first time that all met minimum qualifications. So we'll narrow it down to those top 6 and hopefully have a hiring decision made probably around the end of February, just based on timing and holidays. with a job offer out there, and then that person starting to come meet you for the March meeting. So we're really excited about that. Any questions on that?
Sounds wonderful. I'm glad you got so many candidates.
Especially in this market. It's a tough market.
Mhm.
Okay, perfect. The other piece I want to do is a quick legislative update. So I'm going to put in the chat an update for our bill. And we do have a bill that is going, that actually we were the first bill, which is super exciting. It's always exciting to be the first bill. But Senate Bill 1, so 23001 is the bill that I'll be referencing. And I will put a link in the chat. So if you want to follow it, take a look at it, you're more than welcome to. And then here's the link for the bill. So what this bill does is it actually will bring an additional $13 million to the unit. And so we're looking at doing some potential workforce housing in and across Colorado. And I'm sure you all have seen Proposition 123 and numerous other legislative addendums that allow for additional funding for affordable housing. Our primary focus for this bill will be what we call workforce housing. So your 80 to 120 or 80 to 140% AMI, which really does allow us to tackle some of the concerns that we have in the rural mountain resort areas. 60% AMI, it changes the dynamic of what type of housing we're able to provide. With a lot of the annexations that the cities and the towns have, there is a requirement to have some portion of all new development for affordable housing. And so what this will allow for us to do is do any type of solicitation, whether it be RFI, RFP, RFQ, whatever acronym we decide to use for a solicitation, to utilize our state land and state assets for workforce housing. In addition to the bill, one of the things that we really do want to focus on with this particular bill is the allowance for us to work with local governments to partner and do those higher vacancy regions throughout Colorado. So in 2021, House Bill 211274 had passed, and then we had our bill, which is Senate Bill 22130, that allows for us to utilize underutilized property in the state. And so what you'll continuously see, and I'll talk a little bit about it later in our program updates, is that we have identified portions of our state land that we can use for housing. I also have a really cool announcement that I'll do in program updates that shows you a link to our new GIS map that's on our website that actually identifies all vacant land, all vacant parcels, buildings that are vacant, and any other assets that we have that are no longer being utilized by the state. And so those are parcels of land that you'll see us going out for bid on to see if there's a best use. And sometimes that's housing, sometimes it's early childcare. But we'll be putting out solicitations in the near future to determine the best use of those lands. So this bill gives us additional funds to be able to do that. It's $5 million specifically for that comes from the unused property fund, which actually comes from general fund, goes to the unused property fund, which then transfers to our bucket of money. And then you'll see an $8 million push, which actually comes from vendor fee, which, if you remember, passed last session, that allows for additional funds to come to housing. So 8 million plus 5 million gives us a total of 13 million on top of the 15 that we already have from last session. So it'll bring our total operating to 28 million. The one thing I want to call attention to is if this bill passes, it does change our operating costs from general fund dollars, which is what we have in Senate Bill 130, to cash fund, which means we would be a self-funded organization. And so as long as we're generating revenue and pushing projects through that make sense for the state, generate revenue from those projects, you will see our balance increase over the years so that we can continue to rinse and repeat those dollars. Any questions on that?
I don't have a question, but correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like this plays right into the questions that Simon was raising in our last meeting around what is our expectation about actually recouping money, let alone generating money.
Correct.
So I just want to make sure we kind of table a discussion at some point about that aspect of our review of these different programs.
Yeah, absolutely, Carrie. And I think one of the other things as we review projects, we'll want to look at, is there revenue generation from the projects in order for us to do more? So it's an exciting bill. I think one thing we just have to pay attention to is it specifically calls out housing. So we'll have an additional 13 million for housing, whereas we still have the 15 million that's targeted toward the 4 areas that we had talked about in our previous bill. But it doesn't mean that we can't use revenue that we generate for other projects like early childcare or behavioral health. So I think it's just important for us to pay attention to that.
Mhm.
But I appreciate your comment, Carrie. Yeah, I think we should probably bring that up as testimony goes in further. I do testify on this bill on the 24th. So if you're interested in watching Latrice go in front of the local government and housing committee, you can do that. And I'll be in Senate conference room 352, but it'll also be live. I'll send a link out. So if you all want to watch, you're able to see it.
I want to watch. Send us
You
the
wanna
link.
watch? Okay,
I
I
do.
will send you the link, absolutely, so that you can watch. David, did you have something you wanted to add?
I did. So the idea is that the P3 unit is self-sustaining via the sale of real estate, basically.
The sale or lease of our real
Oh.
estate.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. And that funding is unrestricted when we sell or lease. We don't have to use any for housing under this bill. Do we?
Not any revenue generated. So the revenue they're transferring to us is specifically for housing. But if we used some of our 15 million that we already have for early childhood or early childcare, we can do that. The revenue generated from that just goes back into our cash fund. I just have to report out on how much we spent on which types of projects to each year to the legislature.
Oh, thank you for that. So that, yeah, that puts the framework around it, I think, really clear, as Carrie said. So that's good. That's exciting.
Good, awesome. We also are going to do a stakeholder meeting. If you're interested, I can send you the link. We will have a stakeholder meeting on Monday, the 23rd at 1 to 2 p.m. It's via Zoom, so you're more than welcome to join online if you'd like. But Senator Roberts, who is the bill sponsor, will be hosting a stakeholder meeting to get input from folks. Here, if there's any things that we should make changes on for this bill, but we will be having a stakeholder meeting, so I'll send that out via email as well, if you're interested. Any other questions from anyone on the call? Okay. Perfect. So Lynn, we're moving along pretty quickly, so we'll come back to your proposal. Or actually, Amy is on. I see she's on. Perfect. Okay. So what we'll do now is we have a proposal submission that came through to us in December, which is super exciting, from our partners in Stratton, Colorado. It's an early childcare project. So both Amy and Lynn will be talking a little bit about what they're requesting, how much money is coming in. And this, of course, is an open forum. So please raise your hand if you're interested in asking any questions. I'll make sure I keep track of it in the chat. And then if you have questions you want to put in the chat and not interrupt versus actually raising your hand, you can also do that as well. But we'll probably take the next 15 to 20 minutes to hear from Lynn and Amy about their request. And I'll turn it over to you, Lynn.
Okay, Amy, do you want to start or you want me to go ahead and you'll just do the financials?
Yeah, I'll just do financial. Go for it.
Okay, we submitted a request to partner with the P3 to help us in the development of a child care center. We've been working on this for like 4 or 5 years and COVID put a delay on it. We are in the middle of Kit Carson County and there's not any public child care facilities here. When I first, like 15 years ago, we started looking at child care. I taught at the school here. And there were like 7 in-home child care providers that were licensed. And now we have 1 licensed person in town that's just taken a job recently. And so we don't have anyone. The same goes for the whole county. Burlington is 20 miles from us and they have, they're in the same situation. They're just further behind than us. They're working on a child care center there too. They only have like 2 licensed people in Burlington. So if a person is wanting to, a family is needing childcare, they've either got to find family that will do it or a friend that will take care of them. And the problem with that is that it's not consistent. They oftentimes put kids in precarious situations where there's not, it's not an enriched environment, and it might be this is good for today, but they have no one for the next day. Because we are in Kit Carson County, it's a lower income agriculture kind of, everything is geared to agriculture pretty much out here. We, with the problem of accessing childcare, means that for people to work outside of the home, it oftentimes means that there's one in traditional family units that one has to stay home as a care provider for the kids. And so it just perpetuates the low income cycle. And it is far reaching. Not only are is the family held back by their lack of two incomes in the family, it affects businesses in the community because they can't fill positions. We just feel like it just perpetuates the situation, and it keeps us on a low income part of the spectrum, which has an impact statewide on where we're at and the financial mobility of families. We started out, we worked with DOLA, and they worked with architects out of CU to develop our plan and do a feasibility study. We were able to determine the need in the schools and in the communities, and it really impacts like the count for free and reduced lunches. It's got far-reaching impact for a family to access licensed childcare. They have to go clear to Lyman, which is 60 miles west, or they need to go north to Idalia, which is 45 miles north. So it's not even a practical option. Sometimes it's just easier if they take care, if they just don't have another job. We started out with a projection on our financials. And Amy, if you want to go over that and what happened with COVID.
Sure. Yeah, we started out with a projection of hard construction costs at 2.6 million. And that was kind of in the middle of COVID. So the cost was inflated at that time. And we felt like it was a staggering number. We've since received an updated proposal, and that price is now increased to 3.6 million. It went up another $1 million. And I don't know if that's a really reliable number, or if contractors are just really trying to make sure they're covered due to supply chain issues and things like that, because it's just really hard to budget for these things. And they're aware of the delay in getting the project started, because we're still in the process of trying to partner with more entities and businesses and such in the community. We have a wide ranging number of partners that we've been able to assemble, which is very, very fortunate. It demonstrates the community support, as well as the business support and the individual support. I mean, it goes without saying that the local families are very excited to have us, embarking on this. But we've also got, the town of Stratton, the school district, and then several local businesses that are very excited and willing to help out in any way we can, and any way they can. That being said, not everyone can contribute financially. A lot of, every member of the board of the foundation contributes countless volunteer hours. I mean, this has been our passion. Lynn and I have been talking about this forever. And it's one of the things where the more we talk about it and the more we build on it, the more backing we get. We were very fortunate to connect with Natrice, and we're looking forward to having a partnership with P3 to help us, get this project started. I feel like once we actually, break ground or do something that people can see tangibly, we'll certainly get even more support. As far as financial partners that we have right now, we've got DOLA. We've been working very, very closely with them. We're told that the maximum application from DOLA will be 1 million, and we'll be applying for that this quarter. In addition to that, we are in the process of applying for a loan through USDA, which USDA has a combination of loans and grants. The grants are far less attainable and far smaller in amount. But they do have a loan capacity that we could take and use to our benefit to kind of fill the gap of the funding that we know we're going to shortfall on, just given the magnitude of the number that we're at right now. So DOLA, then we've also applied to Buell, we've applied to Gates, and Lynn and I have a conference next week or later this week with the energy resource. I can't recall the actual title. Lynn, do you remember? Of Ryan. Anyway, it was to bring an energy component into the project. We're really excited about being innovative with what we're doing, you know, building the building and also having it try to be somewhat sustainable on its own. We're talking solar and wind. We're hoping to bring that. Of course, the building's been developed and going to be built so that it could adapt to or be favorable for solar panels and or roof mount wind panels. We've also taken into account the whole COVID situation. We've been working on, you know, air circulation and ways to make the building, you know, a healthier building for children. So, and then the last partner that financially we're hoping to, well, actually there are two more. The local public school district, the school has access to funds that we may not be able to apply for, given the fact that we're a nonprofit and they're a government entity. We're not sure exactly what that would mean to us, but just knowing that they back us and you know, investigating whether or not they have things they can apply for. We're looking forward to that. And then there's also the town of Stratton. Our DOLA application will go through the town, so you know, they're trying to help out in any way they can as well. So I hope I've not gone on too long, but that's kind of where we're at on the physical or the fiscal side rather.
So our site that we have been working since 2017 with clearing this block here in town that used to house the old school, which was vacated in the 60s. And it's been bought up in different parcels. And I think it's been 3 or 4 parcels that we have been able to secure, clean up and turn it into, we'll empty it out because it was a hazard. And we are wanting to, through the foundation, we have been trying to develop it into both a childcare center and a fitness center. Because there's such a need for that out here. The other need that I do need to talk about, because we would be licensed childcare facility, then we would be able to access CCAP funds for families that would qualify financially. And also with our partnership with Buell, we hope to be able to access tuition waivers and support with that through them for the families that are in real need for that.
Oh, nice. Thank you, Natrice. That's our site there. That's the entire block. You can see how many parcels it got split up. I'm sorry, Lynn, I just jumped in there.
No, I'm glad you did. I ran out of anything to say.
So we were able to obtain the full block now. So all of the sections that you see within that block are now owned by our nonprofit, the Stratton Area Foundation. And we're in the process. There's one last structure on the site that we've worked with a local business to have the building actually deconstructed and reconstructed off-site for their use. So as Lynn said, this has been like a labor of love for many years. And it's also been a huge benefit to the town just for the cleanup factor alone, because the school was abandoned, you know, broken windows. an ugly, terrible blue paint color. And I mean, we've worked very, very hard to clear this site. I feel bad that we don't have a picture of the site as it stands now so that you could see like a before and after. We were able to receive, apply for and receive the brownstone grant for the environmental cleanup. So we've done a lot of good even before we've built a site. So we're very proud of the progress we've made, and we're hoping to get this moving forward and try to get COVID away from the situation and kind of put it back into gear.
So when you live in Eastern Colorado, you know that you're going to give up a lot of amenities. Like there's no convenience with fast food or anything here. But it's really tragic when it's a convenience like childcare and safe places for kids to stay. That's our proposed
Site
site.
structure.
Yeah.
I'm trying
so
to
the-
actively like add pictures as I feel like.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. Thank you. I feel
We're doing really well.
prepared. Natrice is more prepared than we are for this. I don't know how much time we're allotted because between Lynn and I, we could probably talk for quite a while on this. So I don't want to overstep. It's just, yeah, these are the conceptual drawings, which obviously are not completely set because we don't know where we're at on things. But the structure itself, we toned down the original construction so that we were building like a metal building. We were going to take a metal building that's going to be constructed on site. And then we were going to try to, update it so it didn't look like a metal structure. Even though we're in an agricultural community, it would be a lot more pleasing to have it look like, it was a regular, brick and mortar building built on site. But it'll be built on site, but it'll be a metal building that we purchase. Also, I'm not sure if we mentioned, the block that we've obtained is right in the central business district of the town. It's very accessible by Highway 24, I-70, very easy to get to, and very visible. We want to make it, a big source of pride in the community where it's going to sit.
So the other thing about that, because there's several businesses here in town that employ like 100 people. There, at one time when we had all of the in-home childcare caregivers, we would have people travel from Burlington and from Flagler to leave their kids here. And when you're in Eastern Colorado, you're used to driving a few miles. So they were making that 18-mile trek from Burlington to leave their kids here because we had reliable childcare. So I think that our pending license is for 60 children, but we think that we had identified at one time like 58 children in the community. And I don't think we'll have any problem at all in being able to fill it up and to maintain where we're at. We also got another grant for training purposes for our personnel, and we got that through the Circle grant. It was a grant to get training going for our for people to work there.
Awesome. I think what we'll do now, it looks like we probably have a couple of questions from people in the audience. So I'll call on commissioners first, and then if anyone else has questions or anything they want to add, we'll go ahead and open it up. David, I see you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I always defer to Carrie first. She's the boss, so.
Don't do that. Your turn.
All right, I'll ask a few and then I'll turn over to Carrie. Can you go to the site plan again for me? I want to ask a few questions. It was the picture of the lots with the color in the middle. So I don't know, Amy or Lynn, is it safe to say you guys own, because the color kind of threw me off in the middle.
Right.
You own block 15, which is the north and south block, right?
Right.
Well, the lines, they split the block,
Originally.
west half and east half, and then they split it north and south. So we own the entirety of everything you see there. The purple, everything to the right and left of the purple, we
Okay.
own that entire site. that entire
Okay, that
block.
helps, because that kind of threw me off. And then what is the 20 foot in the middle? Is that an easement, or it says 20 feet and then there's just, it looks like,
I think it was the alley at one time.
Yeah, they
The alley,
vacated for the
okay.
alley.
okay, and maybe it would be helpful to see a plat, but at some point it would be helpful to know where on this the building's gonna go and what effect that easement has on the site, that 20 foot alley.
Yeah,
Can you
we're
build
going
on it,
to
would be a question.
talk with the town about removing that easement. And the childcare center will be built on the north half or the left side. And then
Okay.
the right side will be used for the fitness center when we get to that.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. I was just curious because it looked like the purple or blue was the lot. I didn't know.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't have submitted something with that color in the middle. It does throw things off. I'm just so used to seeing it. I've been staring at this for 8 years,
Years.
so.
So, and we've already talked to the town about the alley, that right away there, and they're really flexible on however they work. That they will work around whatever we need, and that would be to even relocate the sewer line and things that might go through there.
Okay, no, that's very helpful. And then I'm gonna go to the budget. The budget questions. So I don't know, Amy, if that's, but I did see your contract. So your price per square foot's about $450 or $450. And just as a reference point, there was one built in Montrose and it just opened and it was about $430 a square foot. So I think,
So it is pretty,
No. yeah, rural to rural. I mean, obviously different sides of the state, different contractors, but it seems like you're probably right in the wheelhouse.
unfortunately, and they told me to go with the higher amount because you certainly don't want to come back with your hand out and say, ooh,
Right.
wasn't quite there. So,
That's fair.
well,
and that's-
thank you for that information though.
And that includes a commercial kitchen. And I saw you guys had one, and I guess, that would be my next question. You kind of, alluded to it there was, your contingency is really low. It's 4.5%. And we're seeing like a 1% escalation per month. So,
Per month.
yes. So.
Okay, so
yeah. Yep.
the kitchen that we have proposed is a heat and serve, and we've worked with the school and that they would do the preparation because the school is only like 4 blocks from the site that we're proposing. And we would work with them with their commercial kitchen for the meal prep and then just bring it over to our site so that, and we were hoping that would cut down costs for us on the construction because we weren't going for commercial kitchen.
Okay, and that makes sense. I just had a question on the actual commercial kitchen, where the costs, and the contractor looked like they did a pretty good job, and they're in Kit Carson, and it looked like a good construction contract. I didn't see the details of the contract, but the bid and the breakdown of it looked good. Just from a high level, I just would just note that it did expire, several weeks ago. I wouldn't be surprised if costs have gone up. Right.
I know. I think that's where we're caught. We had a good discussion with USDA about that because they're like, we know it's never going to be the right number. So they're going to give me a little bit of guidance about how we apply for our loan with them because we honestly don't know what to do. Like,
yeah. Well,
do
and
inflate it grossly.
I'm just bringing them up. I mean, I think.
Yeah. I appreciate
your
that.
Contract appears to be a guaranteed maximum price contract, which means that if there's
Right.
problems, that's the contractor's issue, which
Right.
is good, right?
Right.
But there's
Yeah,
always.
and he's good with that once it's signed.
Exactly, and he gets payment, right? So I
Right.
understand. And then, my last question, I'll turn it over to Carrie. These are just kind of high level. I just wanted to circle back too on the site and the Brownsfield grant you got from presumably CDPHE.
Correct.
Is the site, do you have a clean phase 1 on the site?
Yes, we do.
Okay, because if you didn't, I would be concerned, but given that you got the Brownsfield grant, CDPHE requires you to get the phase 1 and a phase 2 under those grants. So you're clean and you're going to have any environmental issues on this site.
Yes, we had a physical inspection and then we had a follow-up inspection and we were cleared.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
it was tough.
Very good.
That's not easy to get done.
No, you're right. And I was just concerned because you had historical uses on the site you mentioned, and old
Yes.
buildings, and I always kind of go, oh, what are
Yeah.
the issues? Where are the
Right.
skeletons, basically?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Thank
that's
you,
great
though.
news. And thanks for answering my questions. That was all I had.
Sure.
So thanks, David, for going first because you addressed some of my questions. I may have missed this in the materials, but I'm not sure I understand where you're coming up with the $3+ million in total to build this.
It's a combination. We put together the entire budget based on land purchases and everything else. So when I talk about hard construction costs, that's the 3.6 million that we got from special, I can't remember, Lynn, what's Bart's name? I don't know, Structures Unlimited or whatever. His
Yes.
quote is 3.6.
Hmm.
And that's to get the structure itself built.
But where are you getting the money to pay the 3.6 million?
Okay, that would be a combination of USDA, DOLA, the town, Buell, and Gates.
Do you have, is that outlined in here? Because I don't recall seeing that breakdown. I see some donations, but it's not nearly the amount you need.
And
in
I'm
here.
not sure if
I see
Latrice,
215,000, well, pledged 333,000 and you've received 116. That's all I saw in here.
and those are just the costs that we got initially. And then
Okay.
we were going with what we could apply for to the other entities. And believe me, I know we're still going to be short. That's why we wanted to work with P3 and the energy entity. So that's what we're trying to put all the pieces together to obtain.
So are we needing to submit another budget with the new costs for construction on there? Is that what you're asking?
No, I always want to understand if state money's going in. We don't usually like to be the first money in. We usually like to be the last money in.
Right.
And so I can see where having some stuff soft circled at least helps you bring in the rest. But I want to understand because from the materials, it looks like there's a very large funding gap for this. And I hear that you have a list of organizations that you're talking to, but I want to make sure I understand where you are in those discussions, how mature this is from you're racing against a clock, trying to get a GMP contract done at a price, and it's just going to go up. So
we have 30,000 from Gates that they committed. And Buell, we have been working with Buell for a year and a half. And because Buell held on to it, and then I talked with them, and they put us back in the cycle, and we should be hearing any day on if we're going to be given anything, because Buell has changed their format for capital funding. And so we've had applications in forever, but different things would come up. We didn't meet the threshold initially. They just held on to it until we got additional funds. And so she is supposed to be letting us know any day if they've given us any capital funds.
So, but the answer to your question though, the lion's share and the first in money that we're hoping to obtain is DOLA. Where I'm told that if we position ourselves with all of the key points that the state wants to see for the site, that we should score very high and are very likely or hopeful to receive that money. Once we get DOLA, we're hoping that the rest of the pieces will fall into place. So that's like our core focus right now, to try to get that million. And then USDA has told us if you get DOLA on board, then it's gonna help with the application to us. And then, it kind of hopefully falls in line after that. So I agree with you. We're nowhere near where we need to be, but we do have some good pieces in place.
So I guess the question for us is just looking at this and saying, does it meet the requirements for the P3 unit? Assuming, but from my perspective, I would want to know that the funds are hard circling before I could get comfortable. I have a lot of questions around operation and maintenance of this facility, and I would like to reserve enough time for Alethea Gomez to ask really good questions, because I know she does, and we sort of I want to make sure she just has time. So I'm going to table the rest of my questions and assume that Alethea is about to talk about them.
Okay.
If that's okay,
Carrie,
Natrice.
That's fine. What we can do is if you want to send me an email, and I have your questions a
Yeah.
lot in the document that you sent, so I can put
Yeah.
those in an email to Amy and to Lynn.
Okay, thanks.
Not to put you on the spot, Alethea, but every time we have early childcare, we're excited to hear from you. So
I'm very excited.
Yeah, thanks so much, Carrie. And I apologize. I had my camera off the whole time because for some reason, whenever weather comes into Boulder, the connection gets a little funny. So please let me know if anything happens here. So Amy and Lynn, thank you so much for this presentation. I know, being located where you are, there's certainly some unique challenges that come with building childcare capacity in your area. Can you talk a little bit about the total square footage of the facility, and then how many children and what age ranges you plan to accommodate within that space?
I'll let Lynn answer that. It's an 8,000 square foot building, but I'll let Lynn answer all the particulars on the head counts and such.
Okay, we are looking at doing, all of our projections were with 60 children, and it was to have 20, let me get my numbers. Here we go. 2 rooms divided by a folding door for 21 to 2-year-olds, 23 to 4-year-olds, and 25 to 6-year-olds, all in different rooms. And the infants were to be, we would have one big room that would have a bifold door between them for up to 10 infants in 2 rooms with a folding door. We also, given whatever our capacity is, because the school has gone to a 4-day week, we were looking at after school program and a Friday school, or Friday open on Friday for kids to be able to come then. They did all the architectural renderings using those numbers so that we would meet that capacity. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Thank you so much. And I think, that's a good amount of square footage for the children that you're looking to accommodate. Can you talk a little bit about the staffing structure and the financial considerations for compensation as well as supply? Do you anticipate that this will require additional staff than you have right now? And what does that look like as far as the operational sustainability of the center?
Okay, we submitted that all on our performa, and we did a 3-year performa where we would build up on our staff. And we had our early childhood council out here had put together the salary for everyone in the area. And I think we ended up going, because it's so hard to come up with help, we raised it to $15 an hour as a teacher assistant. And we were looking at staffing originally for, I had this. It would be one 3 to 4-year-old room for 20 children, one adult. Do you have that there? Okay. That articulates much better than I do. And then those are the salaries that we were looking at for starting positions. We also are working with the Burlington Child Care Center with the initial plan that we would develop an LLC to help with the position with payroll and compliance and with our accounting kind of things to help offset all of the administrative pieces with that. Burlington is on board with that, so we've been working towards that. I don't know that I answered your question.
No, I think so. And I asked this because, and you know, I apologize. I don't have the proposal in front of me. So thank you, Natrish. And so a lot of my questions won't be as well informed as the commissioners, but I think, you know, from EPIC's perspective, we think about what is the opportunity for operational sustainability when we fund these projects, and
Right.
do we see that that's backed, right, by good data in the area, or should that more be an area of focus when we think about these projects? If it's 430 a square foot to develop the site, or it's 3.6 million, what does that look like year over year in the pro forma, and is that realistic to what is happening in your area, right? So if this wage structure or the teacher to child ratio structure works within the pro forma, I think it's always important to take a step back and look at, is that sustainable and is that likely? And, you know, I think that's an important consideration to make here. So I would just encourage that, you know, you take a look at that as well. You know, and not being from Stratton or, you know, familiar with some of the market data, I'm assuming that's already been done.
And Lynn and Amy, one thing we can do, if you're comfortable with it, is we can actually share your submission documents with Alethea and she can take a look at it. We try to keep everything to us until we bring it to a public forum. And now that it's public, obviously everybody can see it on the screen. But if you're comfortable with us sharing it with her, we're absolutely open to doing that.
Very much so. I would like it shared. We struggled. We put together the pro forma budgets, you know, based on salaries that Lynn had obtained from other the other centers like around, and they seemed a little high, but then we were thinking we needed to really stay in that range. And then we did a 3-year based on, I think, again, you'll see it in the documents. I believe it was like a 40 to 50% capacity the first year and then graduating up. And we relied heavily on assistance because we knew that the local families were not going to be able to afford the tuition rates. So we knew that we would have that added, you know, income to try to help on both sides, our cash flow of the site, as well as to help families get their children in at a cost that they could afford.
So can you just pause on there and tell me, because I don't know, what is the typical childcare assistance like? So of that $44.65, how much would be covered by assistance?
So
Lynn can
the
answer that one. Yeah.
The CCAP program, I've been working with the county on that. And if they qualify, they will take, it's not even a partial, it would take care of the entire fund. It would take care of the total tuition.
And what's the average? I mean, how hard is it to qualify? Like, you know, I'm looking at $44 relative to a $15 salary for the most senior teacher you've got there, thinking, well, they can't afford to have their own kid at the childcare center. So what is it? How common is it for someone to get that kind of assistance? Is it difficult? Like, if it sounds like we're really going to rely on that, then is that sustainable and available for 60 families? Or however many families for 60 kids?
I am, I'm basing it on when they told me, with the person that takes care of that, and they do, Kit Carson County farms it out to Washington County, and that's the person I talked with. And it's based on their AMI here in this area. And my understanding, because we have nothing to compare it with out here, is that that it's easier. I mean, they will not have a problem being able to access those funds. And I think that if you look around at jobs, especially for females here without a degree, they're looking at a good salary out here is $15 an hour for females. Males probably make more. Amy knows a little bit more. That's what she works with. She's a comptroller for 4M feeders. But the $15 an hour should qualify them for this. If it's dependent on the number of people in their family and the number of hours they have. So that's the impression I have, and I'm sorry I don't have more information, but the more I asked, the less they were able to tell me, because it's just not used out here, because the licensed childcare center there's one in Yuma and there's one in Akron, and we have none in Kit Carson County.
Thank you. Carrie, does that answer all your questions? And Alethea, I will send you a copy of what was submitted to us so you can take a look at it.
I guess
That would be great.
I guess I'd be a lot more comfortable if there was a more precision in the budget around this. It's
Okay.
sort of it sounds like we're proceeding with a lot of assumptions that are, are more anecdotal than based in data. So I
would agree with that. I think that I put in there the numbers that we have. So the other thing that I had was what the free and reduced in the surrounding schools were for them to qualify for that. And I think that if I need to generate some more to try to figure out percentage wise and to generalize that to this, I can try to do that and submit that to you. And just base it on that, because I got countywide what are free and reduced in the schools and second language information. So if I need to do that, I'll take care of doing that.
Thanks.
And just try to generalize with that. If that works.
Mhm.
I think the more the better for really supporting the application, whether it's to us or to Gates or Buell or anyone. I think
Right.
people really need to know that how this is going to work from a sustainable perspective. That
Correct.
And Lynn, what I'll typically do is I summarize all the questions. As you see me over here taking vigorous notes on the side, I will send a summary of all the things that we still need. And then you don't have to resubmit it through the portal. You respond back to me via email. And then we can bring you back to this committee to have a conversation about the follow-up information. We do have another commissioner on that joined. Steve, did you have any questions that you wanted to address that Carrie and David haven't already?
No, and I'm kind of getting caught up here, and I'm sorry that I'm late, but I do appreciate the presentation. And I think from what I read before, I think this project has great potential. I just think we need to see a bit more detail before this hits the finish line.
Perfect. Carrie,
Totally
you'll send me
understand
the
that. Yeah.
Thank you. Carrie, will you send me the questions that you had that we may not have touched on? And then I can summarize that plus what Alethea had asked. And Alethea, if you can send me anything that you and Nicole may have in regard to questions, what I'll do is I'll put it all in one email and send it over to Lynn and Amy, and then we can get more information, maybe bring you back for February's meeting or bring you back for March, depending on how long it takes to get the information. And then we can have additional discussion. Does that work for you all?
yes.
That sounds great. That sounds great.
And your February meeting was the 13th, right? So I can.
February 13th, correct? Yes.
Yeah.
And if not, we can do March, which is March 14th. So I'll keep you updated.
I just need it on my calendar soon. So
Okay, perfect. Any other questions from the rest of the group in regard to the Stratton project?
Nope, I just popped my email into the chat though, for both of you, Lynn and Amy, and feel free to reach out too as well.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the questions and the input. Like Lynn and I said, we both have full-time jobs and we work on other things, and this is just something that we're really, really working hard to put together. So your input and your insight is wonderful.
Thank you both for joining us. You're welcome to stay on unless you have other things to do, because having a full-time job plus this is probably a lot. So
I'm going to have to bow out, but thank you all for your time. Very much appreciated.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Bye-bye.
thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, next couple of things for our program updates that I just want to give you all a quick brief on. We have submitted our RFP for Burnham Yard. And so the ownership representative is, and I won't go into too much detail about it, but it is on our VSS website. It closes on February 6th. And so what this project allows for us to do is have an ownership representative that manages several portions of our Burnham Yard project, to include a market plan for redevelopment for that site, as well as working with the security company that was hired by CTIO to manage that company and ensure that the property stays safe. And then we also have several other components within that RFP. Once it closes on the 6th, what we'll do is have a board of people. So there's several people that will be on our review board, and then we will have hopefully a decision made by February 27th. So I should bring back that information to you by the March meeting in regard to where we stand with that, how many solicitations we received. We're hoping to make an offer to the vendor by February 27th with a start contract date of April 1st. And so what that does is it allows for whoever our vendor is to work with the current transportation study vendor, which is HDR, to get all the information for the last couple of months of their contract on the transportation study, which allows for us to understand the alignment of what we could do with the rail. And so as I've talked to you all before, the transportation alignment basically lets us know, should we move to which side of the parcel on our rail, and which grade we have, if we have an at grade, if it's an overpass, if it's an underpass, all of those things. So we will have that information by the end of May. So that will give 2 months for this particular vendor to work with the current vendor on the transportation study to then move into the next phase, which would be the redevelopment, determining what's left of the land, what's left for redevelopment, what we're going to do with that. We have started equity studies, and I just want to keep you updated on that. Those equity studies are questionnaires that we do with the surrounding businesses, so all the RNOs, the neighborhood associations, sorry, I won't use acronyms, and how those particular organizations would be impacted by whichever location we put the rail. As you all are very well aware, transportation has been used to divide communities, unfortunately, and so we're trying to have those conversations with our communities prior to making a decision. We have RTD, BNSF, and Union Pacific at the table as well to let us know what alignments work for them, because it's actually their rails that will be moved. And so once we have all of that completed, we're hoping to have those interviews done by the end of January. So I'll be able to bring you an update for February's meeting about that particular piece. Any questions on Burnham? All right, the other piece that I wanted to just give us a quick update on, which I think you guys will like, as we've been having conversations with nonprofits, foundations, philanthropic organizations about our program, we have found that a lot of our foundations are funding multiple portions of these projects, but not having a conversation with one another. So what we're doing is bringing together a consortium on February 1st, where we will be doing a discussion with Buell, Gates, there's like 9 different organizations. It's 25 people, pretty much is what it is, from all the different foundations that will do discussions. We've got Gary Venture Capital that will come to the table. We also have several other foundations that have kind of reached out and said, hey, Nutrice, we're interested in doing funding. We have grant programs that fund capital construction for early childcare centers, but we'd like to know like how we can work together. And so we'll be hosting it at Clayton Early Learning. So it'll be a neutral location. If you all want to come, I will send the invite to you as optional. It is in person. If we need a virtual option, please just let me know if you want to attend, but EPIC will also be present for that conversation as well. And we'll be bringing projects like UNC, like the one you just heard from Stratton, and a couple others that have come to us with not officially submitting a proposal, but have questions about how they could access funding. And so I think that consortium will meet on a quarterly basis with all of the foundations to determine, how do we really help with the early childcare gaps that we're starting to see across the state. So we're really excited about that. Any questions on that particular initiative? Are you guys excited about that? Do you want to hear about that? Okay, cool.
Yeah, that sounds really great. That sounds like an important meeting to have. I'm glad you're doing that.
Thanks. Yeah, we're excited to have it. I mean, I just kept noticing all of these different foundations and applications saying, oh, we went to Buell, we went to Gates, we went to DOLA. And I was like, well, let's start talking about what we're doing statewide so that you're not just getting gap funding and not really talking about the overall framework of what early child care looks like. So that's exciting. The next piece is the Steamboat Springs. We will be issuing, well, not we, the city of Steamboat Springs will be issuing an RFI, request for information, to do a proposal on a site of land which is CDOT owned. The land is in Steamboat Springs, and what they're looking to do, and I can send you all, I'm sure some of you have seen it, but there's an article that actually went out in the Steamboat Springs newspaper that we're really excited about potentially doing an early child care center, and then floors 2 through 4 or 2 through 5 as housing. And so it'll be a mixed use development, but we need to do a study to make sure that it'll actually work on that land before we actually invest in any dollars in that particular project. So that RFI will come out from the city of Steamboat Springs. Once it goes out, I will send you a link to it that just shows you kind of what it is that we're looking at doing. And then the study will actually be split a third between the state, the city, and the county. So we already have local buy-in, which is really exciting from the commissioners. And we also have local buy-in from the city as well, who will be hosting this RFI. So we can actually get the best use of like, how high should we develop? What does this look like? How many kids can we have? How do we do parking? All of those things. So we'll do that study over the next couple of months. The state cannot actually do surveying on that land until after their massive snow melts. So it won't happen until like April or May, because right now there's about 6 feet of snow and nobody is surveying on land where there's 6 feet of snow currently. So I will keep you updated on that RFI. Last couple things, we did receive an AHEC Auraria Higher Learning Campus proposal that we will be bringing to you all in March. So I will download that information. I want to leave February to give you a couple of updates on some things, and I think UNC might be coming back to us with answers to the questions that we had. So I'm going to move the AHEC proposal to March. It still hits our 60-day timeline in which we have to bring things to you all. So AHEC submitted their proposal, and we'll bring that to you in March. They already have it held on their calendar. It's a combination of early child care, housing, and a couple of other commercial development on site on that land. I'm not going to the mayor's conference, so we can strike that from the conversation, but there is something exciting I want to share my screen with you all about. We did just launch our, if I can find the screen that this is what happens when you have too many screens open. Hold on. Too many tabs. So we just launched our new portion of our website that I promised you we would do, which is actually our new map. So here we go. I found it. So this map, and I can't see you guys and the thing at the same time. Here we go. So this map actually shows all of the land that we have that P3 can access. And so let me move you over here. So here you'll see the vacant parcels. We have currently 55 vacant parcels of land, and this is on our website. So I'll send the link to you all so you can find it easily. And of course it's loading slowly as I'm sharing my screen, but it has 55 parcels of land that's vacant. We also have 52 state facilities that we're either underutilizing or not utilizing. And then in total, we have about 939 state parcels. Not all of them are available. So as I demo this and it's not working, I will show you that when you click on the parcels, it actually gives you information about what's currently being used for. And then we have 289 parking lots, which includes all of the things that we've seen from the universities. And then we have buildings that are vacant, 152. This also, as soon as we finish the overlay, will include state land board sites as well. So those will be labeled with if there's a current lease on it, if it's a solar lease, a ground lease, what they're doing. And so that information will be available on our website as well. But this is really exciting. It's a GIS map that was done by some of our staff in the state architect's office. And this will be the way in which we kind of determine what parcels we're going to put out for bid. And then also if people reach out to us and say, hey, we're interested in this parcel, what's going on it, you actually will be able to see that through this map. That's not loading for me right now. So just ignore it.
Is there any double counting happening here, or are these all separate categories? So a state parcel, 939 state parcel, that would that include state facilities of 52 or not?
It does include the facility.
It does. So,
total,
there's a total is 939.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But not all of them are vacant. So that's why we broke it down by vacant parcels.
So you've got those are subcategories then of.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, wow. Look at that.
There you go.
Okay.
See, it just takes a minute, and
Yeah.
when you're sharing your screen, it never works. So we have
Yeah.
it actually broken down by which organization owns it. So we would work with, let's say we wanted to look at CDHS, they have 10 vacant parcels of land. If there's a parcel that you're interested in, it tells you the address. There we go. Now it's working. Yay. So it tells you the actual address, what's currently on there. And then if there is something currently on there, we would reach out to them and see if they are continuously utilizing it. But it's really cool because then you can see where it's located, the actual address, and if there's anything on there, if there's apartment buildings or anything like that, we can take a look at
If
those.
it's vacant, how is there something on there?
Well, vacant is in it's unutilized.
Got
Empty
it. Okay.
building.
Empty building. Okay.
Yeah.
But I thought that's a building vacant category.
Well, building vacant has everything that's physical structure. So like if there's a human services, like the Summit Village, for example, they have their regional center, but it's not being used. So the regional center shows up under building vacant, but it's not an actual part. The parcel itself comes in, let me find the address here. So this is the Summit Village parcel. So you'll see that it's got something physically on it and it tells you what it is, but it'll also show up under building vacant.
Okay. Now
So
I
they're
understand.
duplicative. Does that make sense? So like here it says 10285 Ridge Road, but that's where Summit Village is, and that's the parcel that we're looking at selling.
Got it.
And then it breaks it all down so everybody can see who the owner is. So as part of our statute, we have to work with the owner first to see if they have any other alternative use. If not, then I connect them with that particular owner and we determine best use. We can put it out for solicitation, or we can also do an RFI and then see if any developers want to come in and tell us what best use could be. We cannot, if we do sell any land, we cannot sell it for below market rate. So we would need to get a current appraisal on any parcel that we're looking at selling, and we have to sell it at market rate. But I know you guys know that, but I just want to reiterate that. Any questions on the map? Take a look at it, bring any questions back that you might have. It's really exciting for us to have that. Okay. Those are all the updates that I have for you all. Steve, one question while you're on. We had decided, well, Latrice made a mistake on her scheduling. So February 13th from the same time, 10 to noon, does that work for you instead of February 14th?
Yes, actually better for me. I'm just getting back from Vietnam on the 13th. So
you have like the best trips ever. So I just don't even understand. Okay, cool. So you'll see that change on your calendar. Virginia actually sent it out, so it should be on there. If there's no further questions, I'll make sure
I just want to bring up 3 quick things. One is just to test the with Steve and David if they agree that it would be helpful to get a very short, spend a little bit of time at one of our meetings with a short education from Alethea Gomez on the economics of early childcare centers, because I just feel like I need something to orient me, a little orientation as I'm evaluating these proposals. And if you agree, then I would ask that we figure out some day to put that on, because I know that it's expensive. I know that it's very dependent on a lot of regulations around how those things have to be, how those centers have to be operated. I know that the number, that the type of child, the age range, meaning, and how many dictates how many teachers. Like there's so much to it, and I just don't know, and I'd like to know a little bit better. So that was one.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah.
I agree with you, Carrie. It'd be also helpful to understand kind of the rating system. Like what should we be looking out for in the, the rating system of these? And
yes.
be asking that question, right? I think that's helpful.
The other 2 questions I keep struggling with in the 2 projects we've reviewed so far that I think might be more discussion amongst everyone, or maybe it's a deeper dive into the legislation. One is this concept of innovation. What are we really looking for innovation? What does that really mean here? Is it, as Stratton was talking about, trying to put more solar on the roof, or is it something else in an approach to building a childcare center? Like I just don't know, or operating it. I actually think it's got to be more about operating it than building it, because that's, I mean, it's not about building a building, it's about building a childcare center. So it's really the programming for that building. So I don't know what innovation really means. And then the other thing that I I want to understand better is it's, and it goes back to Simon's question that I just have been gnawing on in my mind. Are we just giving grants for, and that's, and so if it's not just giving, like, what are we looking for, especially looking at Stratton where we're not, they already own their property. So it's not like we're contributing, leasing or selling state property at whatever price. It's, they're just asking for money. And is that really the purpose of this program, or what are the boundaries around that? Because I certainly want to help Stratton get their early childhood care center. It seems like they really need it, but I just want to make sure I understand what the scope of the legislation is that we are providing advice on. So that piece, I think, bears some further discussion, at least for me.
Yeah, that's fair, Carrie. And I also think you have this highlighted in our last meeting is, Natrice, when we're talking to the recruits doing the underwriting or, prospects here is, Simon's question too was very good. And what is the remuneration for the state? How does the state get paid back for these services and funding that they're providing? That's a really good question to ask on the sustainability component of these requests.
Yeah, I agree. And Carrie, I think that both the innovation conversation and what we're looking for in these projects is twofold, right? So if they're generating revenue, it usually means the state owns it, right? Somewhere we're either charging a building lease, we have a ground lease, something is in place, or we're selling a property. When projects come to us, which is why we put it on the score sheet, some of them are not going to be on state land. So how do we look at, is this project going to generate anything for the state? Is it building space that state employees or whoever, state staff, could utilize it as space for childcare for their kids? Or like, how do we bring in that? I don't even want to call it revenue because it's not always going to be revenue. And I know that's really bad to say from a revenue generating source, but it's not always going to be money. So what are the economics that we need to put in place? And maybe we do a work session after we have Alethea talk a little bit about the economics behind ECE. I think there's something else we need to look at, especially when it starts coming to housing, because our next proposal is going to include housing, right? So if we have something that we know includes housing, there actually is a revenue generation component built into that proposal, and it's on state land. But how could we do that with developers to determine, like, if it's not on state land, how do we have some sort of not even kickback, but if we put in $2 million, so to speak, is there an ROI for the state? Is there some way in which we subsidize our funds through this? Is it through one of the housing authorities? Is it having a conversation with the school district? So I think we might want to brainstorm. I'll put together some documents that I got from our AI conference that talk about how you get, it says revenue, but it also is how you get state benefit from projects in P3. So I might ask AI to come talk to us about the revenue cap and like how we get that money. So I think February will make it more of a working session, revenue, innovation, and then also what else we're bringing to any projects that are not on state land, especially because we can't charge that building lease. And then I'll talk to Alethea to make sure she can come and talk through the economics behind early childcare. And I think we're going to run into that specifically with behavioral health as well. We haven't seen a proposal in that area yet. I don't know how, without owning the property, how we would generate any sort of like benefit, minus the fact that we open up space for people to be able to receive treatment. But I think that's a conversation that we will have to have, and even with broadband as well. But I think that's a little bit easier.
So one idea, and I don't know if it makes sense for these programs, is also to look at job creation, because certainly the child care center is going to create jobs in Stratton, which is one of, from the OEDIT perspective, one of our primary goals. And so that, sustainable jobs in rural Colorado are hard to come by. And, that would be one way. I was thinking about it as well, maybe there's that, but just I think I love what you're talking about. Brainstorming, bringing in some of education for us would be super helpful.
Okay. I'll bring that in. I will send the agenda out probably a couple of weeks in advance, just to make sure I'm capturing everything that you all are asking for as a draft version. And then if you can comment on it in the next couple of weeks, that would be great. And then we'll send the final version out. So that way we've got everything that we need. So that's exciting. Okay. Notes taken. Thank you.
That's all I had.
Jeff, did you have something? I see you unmuted.
Hey, thanks, Patrice. Yeah, I was just going to briefly mention that Patrice, you and I have talked offline about how the this P3 program can potentially collaborate with some of the new housing initiatives that are out there, including the Middle Income Housing Authority and Proposition 123. And I think, Patrice, our goal is to have you potentially come participate with the Middle Income Housing Authority at the February meeting. Should there be any kind of a joint working backwards the other direction where we have Middle Income Housing Authority and or someone come talk about Proposition 123 to brainstorm with this team conceptually how these projects might work together? Just want to throw that out there for your consideration on a future agenda.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Jeff. I actually am going to talk to the AG. I meet with her tomorrow, or not, what's tomorrow? Friday. I meet with her on Friday to ask how Proposition 123 could impact any of the things that we might receive as proposals. But I think there's a deeper dive that I think we should take maybe after your February meeting is, I don't know, I'm assuming that Steve, David, and Carrie are aware of the Middle Income Housing Authority, but like what exactly is their statutory authority? Carrie's saying no. So it would make sense for us to bring them in and kind of tell us what is their overarching scope? How do they see us overlapping or working with them? I know you and I have kind of talked through how we could potentially utilize some of our state land to bring in those conversations, but I think that there's going to be projects that authority is going to see that's not on state land that developers are bringing to the table. Is there a way for us to do a P3 concept with those parcels as well? And so I think as we get a further understanding of who's on that authority, what they're going to do and what their end goals are, I think we should do a working session with all of us.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And just from a timeline perspective, the Middle Income Housing Authority is sort of charged with implementing an application process by April and doing a couple of projects. So, you know, maybe it is something as soon as the February meeting if we want to try and get at least some conversation around that in preparation for their April process.
Okay. I will send you, I mean, I want to say we did it pretty quickly, but I don't know if it's quickly is the right word. When we put together the program manual, I brought it to this commission to kind of review verbatim what we have and what we don't have. Then we created the scoring criteria. So I think that those are things that you can use as a best practice. I think that if you don't have scoring criteria, you're going to run into like, how did we rank this? Where did it stand?
Sure.
How do we know if this is acceptable or not? But I think there's a deeper conversation to your point that we should have to understand like, what are they looking for? Because if they're supposed to implement projects by summer or a little bit later in fall, how can we help support those? If we have state land, like, do I put out an RFI? Do I put out an RFP? What makes most sense? So I think that conversation is maybe something we can add to the agenda for their February meeting and then bring it back for us to discuss for March and bring like whoever your chair is plus you after that discussion. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
Okay,
that'd be great. And yeah, I like that idea.
thoughts from commissioners on that?
No, it's great. I've never heard of the Middle Income Housing.
It's brand new.
Okay.
I don't want to take up too much of your time, but it was passed in the previous legislative session. It's an independent authority that that OEDIT has a role in staffing, and currently Pat Myers, the previous OEDIT executive director, is the interim chair and is really involved in kind of getting it set up and going during the early phases. So it's a pure housing kind of play for middle income workforce housing. And it's structured after some similar legislation in California that sort of allows for this authority can basically develop or work with private developers to cause to be developed and then to own and operate middle income housing. So think of it as an independent state authority that can be involved in various kinds of financing transactions and activities to develop middle income housing. And the general intent is for this entity to own that housing and run that housing longer term. So it's just it's yet another vehicle, a financing and operational vehicle for building middle income housing, defined as typically 80 to 120% of area median, targeting people with 80 to 120% of area median income. Although in mountain communities, resort communities, there's ability to go a little bit higher, up to 140% of AMI. So
Thanks, Jeff.
Yep, you bet.
Jeff, I also wonder, as Senate Bill 1 is going through, if it's worth bringing up Dow Junction, because that's exactly what they're looking for is a Dow Junction type. I mean, it's state land board land, so state owned. It's workforce housing for the Vail Valley, which is lacking about 5,900 units of affordable housing in that area. I mean, we could use that plus the steamboat example. So we have some things that we could bring to the table as part of our discussion mechanisms to let them know, we are looking at this from a state land perspective as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful.
Okay, perfect. So I will come to your February meeting and then you will come to our March meeting.
How do you guys get any work done? Just curious.
We're like masters of managing meetings, Carrie.
Yeah. Clearly, I have a lot to learn from you.
Perfect. Okay, so I've got some things on here for the agenda for next month, and then I will keep you all updated on who we'll bring in to talk about the discussion on revenue generation for P3. And then Jeff and I'll keep you updated on the Middle Income Housing Authority. Maybe we just make that an ongoing agenda item, Jeff, so that you guys can provide updates when we're not doing a brainstorming session.
Sure.
Okay, perfect. Anything else for the good of the group? Look at that, 8 minutes early. Okay, perfect. Then I will see you all on February 13th. If you have any questions, let me know. Carrie, please send me the email about all the additional stuff that you have. And if there's any other things that you need, let me know in the meantime.
Thank you. Thanks for all your hard work, Natrice.
Yeah, thank
Really
you very much.
appreciate it.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Bye.
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 Bye.